Howdy friends, Rodge here, aka the Wisco Horn Dog, and I'm back again for another Saga Thursday, your regular source for Saga, the miniatures game content. And we are chatting about Adepticon this week. So last week I gave you guys the skinny on my pending Adepticon events, and this week we are going to catch up on exactly how it went for the old horn dog. And then actually next week we are going to take a look at all the sweet army photos that I took while I was there. The paint standard was through the roof in the Saga Hall this year, and I didn't believe that those paint scores that Hagen was mentioning were going to make a big difference. I thought it would just lead to more grumbling, but it actually did improve the overall aesthetic of the hall, and there was a ton of sweet armies, and it worked out really good. It was really awesome to really see that play out. But I played in the Saga Team event, which was on Friday, and that was a fun time as well. I was teamed up with my old mean Wisco boyfriend, Mr. Matt J. Jack. He was running the Scots. I was using Welsh, and haven't had too many games with the Welsh. In fact, my one serious test game was a horrible defeat against old Barnaby, who is usually the whipping boy of the group. So that sent me some warning signs across the bow there about my pending performance. But we went into it anyways, looking for a good time, and it definitely happened. First round, we were up against the Beard Bros Awesome, which is actually Kevy B and Mikey G, the People's Viking himself, running the Steppe Tribes and the Pagan Rus. So astute Saga Thursday viewers will note that Kevy B helped me run the Steppe Tribes tactics and battle board video, and then Mikey G actually ran the Pagan Rus one. So it was good to see some Saga Thursday guys up against me on the round one table there. And this scenario was pretty cool. I think it was just called the hostage. I want to see if I can post it below. It might not be available right when the video comes out, but I'll go back and edit it and add it in there because I think I have to email the guy to get it. But yeah, so this is kind of like a homebrew scenario that basically both sides have a hostage, which is one of the warlords on the team, and then a unit of Hearthguard to accompany him. So I like the general idea of this because if you read a lot about the kind of Dark Ages history, and in particular the Bernard Cornwell books, they are always taking hostages and you know, as for good behavior, you know. So if you guys got a truce, you can trade some people back and forth, and then if someone were to break the truce, then you just cut them. So presumably these are family members, like your son or daughter, family members or something like that, so you wouldn't be so inclined to break the truce. So there on this starting tables, there was, each side had a building on it, maybe 6 to 8 inches in on each side. And then you kind of set up your armies, and then you each had that warlord and Hearthguard unit just sitting in that other building there. So it was kind of tricky because they couldn't attack your warlord until they were attacked themselves. So there was that kind of first blood element where if you were attacked, then you could presumably go in and kill the enemy warlord while they're in the building. But it's a warlord, they're in a building. It's going to be a tough cookie to crack with that Hearthguard there. So our general strategy was to try to get that fucker out. And it didn't quite go as planned against these two KG opponents. We moved up, we didn't shoot, and then they ended up kind of shooting away at us with some bows the first turn. So I was like, oh, great. They shot at us. We're just going to head back and kill that warlord. It's going to take a turn to get there. And then on the following turn, we'll use all our Saga dice between me and Matt. We will have enough to root out that warlord in the building there. Now, this is where the key takeaway comes in, because A lot of you veteran Saga players will know that actually having the opponent's battle board on your side, like a second copy, and then marking what abilities they're using is a pretty handy thing to do. And I had previously I never did it because I didn't have all the boards, but I actually have them all now in anticipation of going through these for Saga Thursday. So for some reason it just didn't click to me to actually bring them all, which is the main takeaway here. Definitely, if you want to play a good game of Saga and you want to win, definitely have the opponent's battle boards, in this case, two battle boards, on hand, because you can easily identify what abilities they're going to use, and it keeps you thinking about that. So in that, with that setup, this might be pretty obvious to some where this is going, but the old step tribes were able to use the Wildcats ability, I believe it's called, basically to move off their table and then actually free the warlord. So to free the enemy warlord, or your warlord, I guess, all you had to do is touch the building. So on our side, we had it kind of cordoned off, and they had it cordoned off as well. So we actually had to fight through all these bodies to try to get to our guy, and they were able to just move on behind and basically set that son of a bitch free. And then there was some pagan fury action going on there. So yeah, that kind of set us back then. Looking back, I think our game plan would have been just to rush the enemy side of the board then, just because there would be no way that we could actually defend that building. We'd have to have basically our whole forces surrounding the damn thing. So that wasn't going to be very likely. So it didn't turn out very well for us, because we went across a bit and then they shot at us a bit, and then we're going to fall back, kill their warlord. But by the time we got there, he was already freed. So then we had to slog all the way back again, and we were just kind of peppered to death piecemeal. And we did get pretty close in the end. My warlord was just maybe 6 or 7 inches off that dirty old building. It was just him in the end, and it was a pretty gnarly slaughter. But definitely a fun game, though. Learned a lot. It was good to be back in the saddle. Hadn't played a Saga game for quite some time, so that was fun. Moving into round 2, we're playing the Equitas Cavaliers, depending on how they wanted to pronounce that. It was Monty Lumen with the Spanish, and then John Redmond with the Militus Christi. And the takeaway from this game here was to stick to the objectives. So this was Sacred Ground with the modification, which I'm not sure if this is commonplace or not, but the modification to where you can only score the number of points equal to the turn it is. So on turn 1, you can only get 1 point per terrain feature. On turn 2, it'd be 2 points, something like that. So we were feeling pretty good about this one. We kind of had a forest close to us locked down, and then in the middle, we knew that we had a ton of bodies, a ton of fighters we could throw at it, versus Monty with his Spanish. They're all kind of weedy, shootier dudes. And then John had a big unit of Hearthguard, but he had him way off on the other flank. And so to start the game, we kind of just trotted across there, kind of claimed the middle, and then did some little bit of shooting, this and that, and we got some shots back. But what happened was the Monty and John ended up pulling a couple units off that hill in the middle, so they stopped scoring for a turn or two, because basically they couldn't stand up to those melee units sitting there. They were going to get eaten alive, because there's mostly just Monty's stuff on there. But their plan was to swing the Hearthguard over and kind of smash through everything one at a time, and then Monty could use his Spanish abilities to kind of mess with our boards and prevent us from kind of counterattacking, or basically doing what we do. And that worked out pretty good, and they were on a roll, and that Hearthguard unit was crushing stuff. But then basically time got called. We played either 4 or 5 turns, and since they had pulled back earlier, and it ended up being a win for us, which it probably was going to get to them in the end, but just play to those objectives. That was a takeaway on that one. And especially for tournament stuff, you never can be sure how many turns you're going to get. So that worked out in our favor. I was actually kind of surprised. I had to go order a big load of pizzas at the end of this game, and then when I came back, I was surprised to find out that we had actually won. It was looking like a draw. So that was a good game for the Mean Wisco boys. Also a fun time as well against these Minnesota boys. So round 3, we're playing Team the Whiston, and these were 2 Viking warbands run by Aaron Loomis and Chris Maddox. And this game was pretty fun because I actually got to use some of the Welsh abilities on the battle board. I felt like in the previous game, I was just using my dice just to move around. Really wasn't rolling too many dragons. Not that I recall. I remember I got to use the taunting once against Monty and John, but then the Spanish board, they were able to just basically counteract that, move directly away. So in this one, we got to use the taunting again to lure some of the Vikings onto the rocks where my Welsh were waiting in some juicy hardcover. So it was fun to finally get to this one was more of a pitch battle type situation, and get to use those Welsh abilities. So that was a fun game. We ended up plugging away at the Vikings and actually concentrated our forces on Aaron's guys on one side. They kind of split their factions, and we hammered them really good. J-Jack had this massive Hearthguard unit fight where his Hearthguard and Warlord versus Aaron's Hearthguard, and used that super ability of the Scots where you got to roll a d6 under their armor and get an attack and defense dice. That was some sweet kill in there. And then I was able to use my jabs to take down some of the other units, especially the Berserkers, and ended up basically wiping Aaron off the board. And each scenario, or just overall, there was a sudden death thing where if anyone was ever knocked down to 0 Saga dice, then that would be the end of it right there. Ended up 2 victories, 1 loss for the day. Team Mean Wisco boys. And it was a super fun time, super chill. I love the team event stuff because Saga's so laid back anyways, and then any kind of team event is going to be even more laid back on top of that. So that was a really awesome time. So final results, well, let's find out. So 50% was victory points, 25% was sports, 25% was paint, to sort of refresh ourselves from what Hagen was saying in his Adepticon preview video. So how did it end up? Okay, well, there was a few different awards given out here. So the first one is just kind of a fun award for the most slaughter points, and this was Team Fall of Hooves, which was John Stentz and Eric Hagen. So the Silver Fox himself, who was on here recently, helping me out with some stuff. And then Eric, this was the Saga event that he was actually going to get to play in. So they were just slaughtering it up. So that's super awesome. There was the Player's Choice, which was vote for your favorite team. So this was Team Beauty and the Beast, which was Andy Lyon and Tracy Beach. And we're going to take a look at their army in the next video, along with all the other ones. But their army were friggin' sweet. He kind of had a Byzantine force, and she had kind of like they're making the bio tapestry type thing going on. I can't explain it. I can't give it justice. So we're going to take a look at that in the next Saga Thursday video, their army specifically. But suffice it to say, massive props to those two. Well deserved. There was a separate best painted category, which was scored based off the check boxes and stuff like that. So that went to Team Stag, Snake, Goose, Lizard, Spock. And offhand, I don't recall these guys, but we'll also take a look at their armies in the next video. I will clarify that. Best sports go to the Lord of what's called the Lord of Branches. Each one of these has a themey title to it. So that goes to the Barons of Bourbon, Kevin Carroll and Aaron Jenkins. And you can imagine how they might have obtained that best sports award with a name like that. This was actually a three-way time, Mr. Gonsowski informed me. And the Mean Wisco boys and then Team Vinesinger, which is Rick and his wife, were also in the running for this one. But the Barons of Bourbon pulled it out because they had the most slaughter points, so they were kicking the most ass and getting the best sports votes. So that makes perfect sense. And then we came down to second overall. This is Champions of the King. This is Cold Wind to Valhalla, Mike Mihalas and Nick Mihalas. I believe this is a father-son duo. And congrats to those guys. And then first overall, the Kings of Saga. Our Beard Bros awesome. So the People's Viking, Mikey G, Kevy B. Definitely happy to be their stepping stone up to the top tables in that round one game after taking a hideous beating. Glad to see those guys pull it out in the end. So they basically almost scored the highest in each one of these categories here, Paul was saying. So they were kicking some butt. So that is my Saga Teams experience. I didn't get to play much Saga after that. I was running in the Infinity Tournament the following day, which I actually obtained Best Appearance for. But this is an Infinity Friday. This is Saga Thursday. No one wants to hear that garbage. But overall, spent a ton of time in that Saga room. It's so chill, so laid back. So many cool people in there playing different games. That doesn't matter if you're playing Saga or not. But it was cool. I got to see, somebody did up, I'm going to have to clarify who, a Grendel versus the Beowulf type game. So there was one Grendel, and he had a board, and then Beowulf and his warriors had a board that they could use, and it was just kind of a awesome looking fun little game. I'll clarify who made that for next time. But yeah, the Saga stuff was freaking awesome. If you've never been, definitely go. See if you can get in on it. Next year, I'm sure it's just going to be bigger and better and more badass. So I think that's about it. Like, favorite this shit, share it with the bud, spread that Saga word. And as always, keep on living those hobby horn dog dreams, my friend. And I'll see you next time. Saga!